Today we'll be discussing the new TV series Deli Boys, and we'll be discussing some of the dangers associated with Ayurvedic medicine. This is Doctor versus Comedian. I'm Dr. Asif Doja, and this is the Doctor of Laughs.
Not a real doctor.
Ali Hassan. Every episode I pick a topic for Ali from comedy and entertainment, and I question him about it. Then Ali picks a topic from medicine and health and grills me on that topic. Today we'll be discussing the new critically acclaimed Disney Plus and Hulu TV series Deli Boys. Then we'll be discussing some of the dangers of Ayurvedic medicine. Now, we're not going to go into a big, detailed discussion of Ayurvedic medicine, but there have been some news articles recently about some people getting toxicity from some of these treatments. So we're going to talk about that in our second half. But in our first half, we're going to be talking about the hit TV series Deli Boys. I want to talk to you about Deli Boys.
Oh, sure. Please. Why not?
This is a show that you told me about on one of a couple text, what are those called? Text groups, text threads with a bunch of people.
WhatsApp group, sure.
Yeah, WhatsApp groups. And I had heard kind of about it, but you were really raving about it. So I thought, okay, let me check it out. And then after I watched it, I was like, okay, we really need to talk about this, especially because there's two main actors on it, and one of the actors' names, that's right, Asif Ali.
It's too much. It's too much. Exactly. It's Asif and Ali talking about Asif Ali and Saagar Shaikh and Abdullah Saeed, who created the show, and Poorna Jagannathan, who is so good in this.
Oh my gosh, it's so good. So maybe let's chat about how you kind of heard about it, what you kind of read about the creation of this, and I've read a few articles as well, and then we can give our thoughts on the cast and the overall show.
Sure.
On Disney Plus and Hulu, by the way. Before we get started with some of these details, I'll just quote an article from the Boston Globe from writer Jasmine Aguilera. This is the quote about this show. "You never know when a moment will become a poignant commentary on modern reality or just a gag, and it's this combination of the unknowable and relatable that kept my eyes glued to the TV." I love that quote because that's a very good encapsulation of this show. There's no way you can predict what happens in this show, which I love, and you can't predict, again, what's going to happen from one scene to the other. Is it going to be some horrifying violence? Is it going to be a hilarious comedy joke? Or is it going to be a poignant reflection on being South Asian in North America? So, Ali, how'd you come across this show?
I follow our man, Asif Ali. I follow him not because of his name, but because he's actually quite hysterically funny. He's a very, very funny dude that I've known about for, I want to say, a decade at this point. I've watched him appear in a variety of he's in very small roles. Between 2011 to 2015, it was like smaller roles, Arrested Development, Modern Family, Silicon Valley, just like sort of showing up a little bit here and there. And then, in New Girl, a couple of episodes, and you and I are cut from the same cloth. When there's a brown person doing something, you go, hey, who is this brown guy?
Yeah.
I think by the time he was in New Girl, I already knew him as a comedian. I was like, there he is. Unbelievable. Then he was in The Mandalorian. See him in an episode of that. And for me, it's like, I can't imagine you're just cast randomly for shows like The Mandalorian. This is multiple callbacks and lengthy audition process to make sure that you're the right person for this job. And I'm sure he was. And yeah, he's just been absolutely terrific in everything he does. Really, really impressed with every
he
role
was in WandaVision.
He was in WandaVision. Shrinking. He's in 3 episodes of Shrinking. And anyway, everything he's been doing is great. So he had been, I think since December, teasing Deli Boys. And when I say teasing, I mean that I watched every tease and still thought it was about New Delhi. Somehow, the eyes just see what they want to see. Your brain, about the brain, right? Dr. Asif Doja, pediatric
I've heard
neurologist.
it's an organ.
Yeah. So sometimes your brain just sees what it wants to see. And for 2.5 months, I was seeing an H in Deli Boys. And I was like, oh my God, this guy is branching out. Because also, it's a whole bunch of things. If you look up Asif Ali online, the first thing that comes up before this guy, despite all his various accomplishments, only a few of which I've outlined, you see Asif Ali, Indian actor. So there is an Indian actor named Asif Ali, and then Delhi reminds you of New Delhi. And so I really thought this was about Indian gangs or something, because the teasing was like very brief, but there was like clearly some violence and stuff. Anyway, it is not that. And what it is has been, I mean, maybe one of the most bingeable shows I've ever watched in my life. And you want to quote a variety of different articles, and so am I. There's so many great things said about this in ways that I can't say. One of my favorite things, actually from a Hyphen Online article, which is a British online publication, they said, for those looking for a subtle exploration of the Pakistani-American experience, this is not for you. And I think that's a great, just get that out of the way. If that's what you're looking for, there's no subtlety here. This is like just wild comedy, and sometimes interfused with great commentary. And you never know what's coming. Is it absolute cartoonish buffoonery, or is it like something that makes you, that's a pretty interesting comment on the society that we live in? So I really enjoyed it. I finished this in a few days. I couldn't wait to continue watching it. And I had to look up a bunch of things about it. Number one, I had to look up the creator of this show. And the creator is a guy named Abdullah Saeed, whose name I didn't know. It's probably because I don't smoke enough weed. If I was a Pakistani who smoked weed, there would be absolutely no way that I wouldn't have heard about Abdullah Saeed, because he is known for work that is focused on drug use. And in fact, he's nominated for a James Beard Award. If you don't know what that is, very, very prestigious food world related award that's given out every year. And he used to work for Vice, particularly documentaries. And he has a show called Bon Appetit, a play on words of Bon Appetit. And it was a series where he invited chefs to cook dishes which were infused with marijuana. In 2017, that was a big deal. In 2025, we don't think so anymore. But that was a big deal. There had only been a small handful of states that had legalized marijuana in 2017. So he was on the cutting edge of that. And from what I'd read, he stopped working with Vice out of protest of the sexual harassment accusations and toxic work environment, those claims that were brought up against the company. And from what I can see, pretty accurate. And so this is his highest profile thing that he's done. This is also his first time writing in this way, non-documentary form. And man, I really think he nails it. And I think there are we'll link to some articles. Read about this guy's thought process and his work. I also listened to a podcast episode with him in it, talking about how he goes for what is the most simple message I'm trying to get across. What is the most simple thing?
Right.
And then let's build on the simplicity. And I thought that was really, not everybody thinks like it. We make things way more complicated than we need it to be.
And he decided to put that first and the comedy first. And the fact that they're, Pakistani origin, and then what happens with the gangster kind of violence that happens in the show, which hopefully is not a spoiler because it happens extremely quickly in the show, even from the first scene. He just said, I'm going to put those things first and the rest of it will flow naturally. I mean, part of it is, it focuses on two brothers, Raj and Mir, who basically one day wake up and they're going to go golfing with their father. The father is rich because he created a bunch of delis, like a chain of delis in America. And delis are, they have a deli counter, but they're convenience stores as well, right?
They're mainly convenience stores with the counter, yeah.
And then he's about to branch off into golf courses. And then that's when the action kind of starts. I guess Abdullah Saeed, he has a brother, and his brother was kind of straight-laced, like the character Mir in the show. And then he was a bit more like the character Raj. He plays kind of a dumb drug addict, drug user, I should say. He's not really, I don't know. It's debatable whether he's an addict or not, but and this relationship, so he kind of, sounds like he took his own personal experience, but expanded it, and the jokes that occur between them. And I mean, some of the characters are dumb in a very fun way, especially because they're getting involved in this organized crime, which they know nothing about. Saeed said that two of the things he drew on were the movie Office Space, which I think he's saying the high-minded stupidity of Office Space,
Yeah.
which is right because Office Space, everybody talks about Office Space now. It wasn't a hit when it came out, but it is like a cult classic because it is poking fun at corporate structure. Like to this day, it holds true, right? In terms of everything.
No,
that
it was
goes
extremely poignant. It had things to say. And I was in the corporate world when I saw it. And man, there are not that many things that I've connected with the way I connected with Office Space. It was amazing.
The other show that he compares it to is Bored to Death, which I know a lot of my friends have seen. I never saw it. It's Ted Danson, Jason Schwartzman, Zach Galifianakis, but he said that tonally is what he's going for. When I try to describe this to people, I say it's like a comedic kind of Breaking Bad. Like take the ideas of Breaking Bad, but it's all done for comedy. And the comedy is... It's true. I haven't watched a show in a while because, there's this controversy about The Bear. Is The Bear a comedy or not? This is a comedy. There's no question about it. Nobody's debating this.
But you know what? You say that, and of course that's true. But he also, because I was trying to watch it from, why is this so compelling? Why am I like, I got to watch it? And I think, and a few of these articles I've read explore this same thing. He plays up a duality, right? So the characters are exaggerated, at the same time they have a realness to them. The violence is insane, and at the same time there's a sweetness happening there, right? The dialogue is wild and crazy and then still has real biting social commentary in it. On paper, I don't think that's easy to do at all.
No. He references the India-Pakistan conflict, right?
Yeah.
And in a way that it's just done so well. It'll be a spoiler to tell you how it happens, but it's just so good. So, and there's also this idea that our parents, especially if you're a South Asian who grew up here in North America, your parents don't tell you everything. There are family secrets, and maybe it's more open in white families or black families, but I don't know because, we haven't lived that, Ali and I, but South Asian families, there's lots of secrets. Why does this auntie not like that? We're not talking about that, right?
Yeah,
so Saeed takes this to
Why
the
does
extreme.
one of your brothers not look like any of your other brothers? Here, eat something.
That's right. That's the solution to everything. So Saeed talks about, it's the extreme, right? With being involved in organized crime. So, and I don't know. It's really good. Apparently, so many networks passed on this. So this is what I want to talk to you about, Ali, because you are currently working on a show, a pilot. That's all we can really say about that. And so this happens sometimes where people will pass, and some of the producers who were interviewed for various articles, which we'll link to, said, we have something similar. The networks will say we have something similar, which cannot be true. You don't have a story about two South Asian brothers who are involved with gangster activity because of their father's, behavior. Like, that is not true. So what they mean is, no, we have a show with one, Pakistani character in it. So
yeah, he's seventh on the call sheet. So it's
do you ever get that?
I've gotten that a number of times. You try not to take it personally. It happened to me many years ago, and it ruined me for a little while. I was working with a production company, and this was in the food world. And this production company made me believe things about myself that I didn't even believe about myself. They were like, we see you as the next face of the Food Network. We see you with having possibly multiple shows on the Food Network. You have this type of personality, you bring this type of energy and enthusiasm. And I was like, do I? Yeah. Oh man, I guess I do. And this guy had done that. This guy, the producer I was working with, had done that with somebody on Home and Garden television. He had worked with somebody and turned them into the face of HGTV. So I was like, this is fantastic. So this gentleman and I, his name is Michael and I get to work on some ideas for shows that I would love to do on the Food Network. Like, Ali Hassan vehicles, stuff that I'm not being put into something weird. This is something that I would 100% do. So we come up with 3 ideas, one of which I love to this day, 2 of which I'd be very happy to, not anymore. I've given up on all this nonsense, but I was so committed to this process. Asif, as well as anybody, is my singular focus on life was to get on television and be a chef on television or in the food world on television. So we go into the offices of this executive for the Food Network, and she could not have been more dismissive of these 3 ideas. We worked for about 4 to 5 months to really, really hone these ideas. And she said exactly what you're talking about. One is like, she said, I think, which is the part that bothered me the most. I think we had a show like this last year. So we're not interested in that one. Number two, that's not really the type of show we're focusing on making. So that's not really for us. And number three, I believe we have something like that coming out. And whatever year it was, let's say it was 2005, she said in the spring of 2007. So something we had no way of knowing about. But also, I watched no show like that came out a year and a half, 2 years later. So I've had that exact thing happen to me, and I still remember it like word for word, the things she said. Yeah, it bothered me to the point where I was like, okay, I have to become the type of person who doesn't let this bother me, because this is too much. This is like taking me to a dark place. And I think I did work on that a fair amount and made sure that I just don't take it personally. So then, you think about these things, you're like, oh, you can't be everything to everyone. One guy is telling me he sees me as the face of the Food Network, and the other person is flicking me off and flicking, my ideas, but effectively flicking me off her desk like I'm a little bug. Like, no, get out of here. So you just have to be like, you can't be everything to everyone.
Yeah.
And that's fine. And so even with the show ideas, I go back to that well. When I was in my food life is when I suffered the most of that rejection and borderline depression and all of that stuff, which has really helped me in the acting world. Because when I go in for an acting audition, I don't have that. I already went through my stuff, right? So yeah, I just say, okay, you can't take it personally. You guys don't see it. We'll find somebody who does, hopefully.
This is a story I can't remember if we told on the podcast before, but years ago, like before we did the podcast, there was a TV show, which I won't name because I can't really remember the name. Ali probably remembers it. It's like a daytime talk show in Canada with 4 hosts. There's a main host who is a pretty famous person, and then they rotate people. And they were looking for a health correspondent and a food correspondent.
Yeah.
And Ali and I talked about it, and I said, hey, I might apply to be the health correspondent. And Ali was thinking about doing the food correspondent, and Ali was like, there's no way they're taking 2 brown guys. It's impossible. This is never happening. And I didn't end up getting the position, though I had an interview. And Ali didn't apply for it, I think, in the end, because you had some other...
Well, actually, I was asked. I got a call.
Okay.
This is the part of the stupid thing. I got a call from one of the execs. Notice you didn't apply for it. Because they know. I'm in the wheel.
You're in
you would be good for this. You should apply. And I was like, I don't know. I saw how my acting was starting to get, starting to ramp up. And I was like, this is like 9 months exclusively, 10 months maybe. You can't do anything else. It wouldn't be fair to, this and that. So I go, maybe not. Maybe this is not for me. It's just only this daytime show 5 days a week for 10 months. That might be a bit much for my lifestyle, what I like to do, what I enjoy. And then I got a call. Noticed you didn't apply. Is there a reason for that? And then I said exactly what I just told you about the schedule is more flexible than you think, this and that. I was like, okay. And then I applied. Rejected. I was like,
okay. I didn't know that last part. I just thought you didn't apply. So anyway, neither of us got that. But anyway, was there a brown guy in the show? There was. But anyway, you can try and figure out what show that was.
Yeah.
In your own Googling. Okay. But getting back to Deli Boys, a couple interesting things from some of the articles we read with the producer and creator of the show, Saeed. He said he's not letting the emotion and the drama be, they're trying to please their parents like every South Asian kid. They're not trying to justify, how do I reconcile my South Asian culture with their American culture? He's like, that ish is boring. That is boring stuff. I'm not that. You just create the characters and let them interact, and then you get the drama naturally, which is so interesting. Like, there's a scene where they're praying, they go to pray at the mosque, and they do it wrong, Raj and Mir, which is like so realistic. Because some people, I'm not saying who, they just watch what other people are doing and then just do that 1 second later when they're at the mosque. So again, we're not going to say who does that or who doesn't do that.
I've heard of those people. I've heard of those people as well.
He makes these subtle points. He's not hitting you over the head with it. If there's 1 billion Muslims, or over 1 billion in the world, everybody practices differently. Everyone is different. They're from so many different cultures. So you can't say this is one thing.
I should say, if you have an issue with the way Asif pronounced the word Muslim, so do I. I do not know why he says
and listen,
Muslims, but
that's a spoiler for a couple of things that are happening later with my pronunciation, but we'll get to this in a second.
Oh God.
Yeah, there's just so many things. Like his dad is a crazy bombastic businessman. Like it's like usually they're reserved Indian father, but they again,
well, that's the way they're portrayed. Importantly, right?
Correct, yeah, of course, because real people are real people. And then the last thing that I want to talk about is this idea of survivor's guilt, which they talk about too. Like Raj, who is like the carefree kind of likes his drugs and partying and stuff because they're all wealthy in the show. He's like, you have to enjoy this life for everyone who looks like us but doesn't have this life. I'm like, this is so interesting, right? Talking about privilege. But again, they talk about it, but these are like one-line things. They're not hitting you over the head. It's not the whole episode talking about it. So I don't know. I liked it so much.
Yeah. And I have all the time in the world for anything Abdullah Saeed does, also because of something else he said in an interview, which is he grew up in Thailand. Organically diverse place, met a lot of different, Asians, brown folk of different ilk. And so at age 13, he comes to the U.S. And, he had grown up with Hindu kids, Nepali kids, Muslims, Pakistanis, people from all these different places. Then he comes to the United States and people have this still, as he says, we still set up like adversaries in this post-colonial setup. I have lots of time for anybody who explores that in any way, however briefly or however deeply. I find it fascinating and deeply depressing as well. And this one character, Chicky Lorenzo, who's like a mob boss, goes, you guys hate each other even though you look exactly alike. Huh. Which is so funny because I've said that about, the Irish and the English and the Scottish and the Irish and how many different people we create these different divides where they really, on the surface, do not need to exist. And I really enjoyed that little exploration in this show as well.
In the last few minutes, I do want to get back to the acting on this show. And specifically, there's an interview we're linked to in Vanity Fair where they interview Poorna Jagannathan. And again, people might remember her as a mother from Never Have I Ever. And she is so good in this television show. It is easily the best performance I've seen on TV so far this year. She definitely deserves an Emmy Award. It is just great. And it's so interesting. I guess Abdullah Saeed initially wrote her as a man. And then he went to a talk by Gina Davis. I don't know why Gina Davis was related to writing for the screen. And Gina Davis said, look at two characters in your script and see if you can change them to women. And so this character was changed, and as was Agent Mercer, who is played by Alexandra Ruddy. Do you know Alexandra Ruddy?
I was going to ask you if you know Alexandra Ruddy, buddy.
I don't know her, but she is married to Abdullah Saeed, apparently.
Yes, and who is her father? Her father, when he talks about his mentors, Abdullah Saeed, one of his mentors is his father-in-law, the late Albert S. Ruddy, who produced The Godfather. And he was the creator of a show called Hogan's Heroes. So he's connected in this weird way to, crime, mob.
And Hollywood
comedy.
royalty. Yeah. So that's interesting. So have you ever thought about that, gotten that feedback about a script? Like, you should think about changing some of these genders of the characters?
I think I live in a world where we try to do that organically.
Kind of the beginning.
But in a film that I did co-write, when we were looking for funding, the four main characters, one of them is a woman and three of them are not. And we thought because it's all South Asian, it's an all South Asian cast. By the way, in our film, which we made 6 years ago, the drugs are found in the exact same vehicle as they're found in Deli Boys. I was like, that's
my
crazy.
God.
Exact same place. I don't know if that's a spoiler, so I'll maybe leave that. But yeah. But it's pretty unique, and we have the exact same thing happening. But yeah, I remember for funding, they were like, well, yeah, you're for brown people, but it's not enough. There's not enough female-led stories. And we were like, oh, okay, that's interesting, because we were like, there were so many female secondary characters. The female lead has like this really powerful backstory, but we were focusing on the fact that we're all South Asian, and that is the diversity of this. No, so it depends where you go. That is definitely a thing. And if you're not willing to challenge yourself as an actor, if you're not willing to challenge yourself as a writer, Even in comedy, when people go, hey, that joke has been done before, the people who go are like, what? No, that's my joke. Write another joke, dude. Hey, your joke is like, it's misogynistic. Your joke is deeply problematic because of this word you use. If you're not able to go like, all right, I'll figure another way in, like, how good a comedian are you really? And the same goes for writers and actors. Like, just figure things out. So I don't think anyone should be challenged by the fact that Gina Davis or whoever, icon of stage and screen, is saying, yeah, look for places to add women in the character. I'm so glad that's in an interview with Abdullah Saeed, because I watched the whole series. It's great. It's probably better. Who's going to do a better job than Poorna Jagannathan in that role?
Yeah,
it's amazing.
Exactly. So, yeah, I suggest people check out this interview. She also talks about just how she's happy her character has a backstory, because often her characters don't have backstories. Not never have I ever. I mean, obviously she's like the second lead in that, but all the other things she's been in. And she's like, there's been a brown deli boy for over 30 years with Apu from The Simpsons. Like, but what's his backstory, right? And she's like, her quote is, always the punchline, never the plot line. I'm like, that's good. So the last thing I want to say about her, she's in a new DC Comics TV series called Lanterns, about the Green Lanterns. And I've heard about this. It's about these superheroes, Green Lanterns, investigating like a Midwest murder, which is very strange because they're superheroes intergalactic. So why are they doing this? But she says it's the best writing. It's going to shift this entire genre. Every character is a hero and a villain. She says, I can't believe I get to play this character. She's really excited about it. And when she's saying that, when she's already in one of the best written shows of the year, and she's talking about a superhero TV show, I'm like, wow, this is pretty exciting. So
yeah, and especially because it's the comic book world, it's exciting to you personally as well.
Exactly.
And it's a great note to end this section on.
So all this to say, I think we all agree, all being me and Ali, you really have to check this out. If anything we've told you about this intrigues you, you got to check out this show. It is violent. So, not as violent as some other things we've seen on television, but it is violent. So you have to kind of keep that in mind, but very funny. And as Ali said, the episodes are less than 30 minutes. You just keep burning through them. You'll finish it in a weekend, probably.
I've got to watch it a second time. I'm going to watch it a second time for all the things I missed. Deli Boys, no H in Deli, 10-part sitcom on Hulu in the US, Disney Plus in Canada and the UK.
Ollie, before we get started in this next section, I just wanted to mention there's one small thing I don't like about Deli Boys. My only criticism is there are a few actors, not a lot, and none of the main actors, some of the more minor characters. There are people who have Indian accents, and some of them I can tell that they're putting on an Indian accent, as in they were raised in North America or maybe the UK, and they're putting on an Indian accent. So the reason I say this, because I, as is well known for listeners of this podcast, I cannot do an Indian accent, even though I can try doing one, but it's brutal. So that also makes it difficult for me to pronounce Hindi words.
Right. So you're protecting yourself. You're saying that you have complaints and others might have complaints about you and specifically how you say the word Ayurveda. But good luck to all of us, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Just have it AI generated. So every time it's like your voice. And then as you get to the word Ayurvedic. Exactly. Let's do it that way. Come on. Let's use AI. Ayurvedic medicine, very, very interesting, has been something that, without it being named, has been around in my family, in many families. It's very much a Hindu medical, I don't want to say tradition, but study of Ayurveda. By the way, Veda means study of, or the science of, the Vedas. And Ayur means health or well-being. So this study or this field has been in the background in my home for years. And I never fully realized that. I thought, as a Muslim family, maybe that doesn't come into play. And then you come to study what Ayurveda is, and you go, my parents used to say stuff like this. My parents used to say stuff, which makes sense because Hinduism is much older than Islam. And so all of us who identify as Muslims would have come out of some connection to this Hindu tradition at some point, right? Our ancestors, some people can trace it just back to great-grandparents were Hindus, and some of them it goes further back. But we all come from this tradition, and it's amazing that in 2020, or let's say 2010, I still had parents who were like, you cannot eat this thing with this thing because this is cold and this is hot, but actually it's not actually cold when you touch it. It's a cold concept. It's a food that has a cold effect on your body, whereas something else has a warming effect on you. But that is all from Ayurveda. So I don't know if you grew up with that kind of stuff too, but I would say that while this is not something that I know hardcore practitioners of Ayurveda, it's definitely been around in my family. But I think it's worth talking a little bit more broadly about what it is as we start off.
Yeah, and we're not going to go through a deep dive into this. This is a practice that's been around, as Ali said, from, I think they say more than 3,000 years ago. So we're not going to be able to talk about all of this. And this medical system, it does rely on kind of a natural, holistic approach to health. And most of it is derived from plants, most of the supplements or things they give you, though they do include some substances that are derived from animals and specifically metals and minerals. And we're going to get into that because that's kind of why I want to talk about this today. But it's also diet, lifestyle, a lot of these other things. And in India, it's practiced the same way as standard medicine is in the US. And the surveys of India and Nepal say about 80% of the population uses Ayurvedic.
So we're talking in the billions. Yeah. In the billions of people use it. Western medicine, very arrogant, very cocky, huh? It's like the big rooster in the room. They're like, if we didn't think about it, it's no good. But 3,000 years, whether it's documented in the way Western medicine wants it to or not, and this is my opinion, not yours, Asif, and I'm just sharing my own opinion. 3,000 years, the same thing goes for indigenous medicine here in Canada. That's a lot of trial and error. Yeah, you figure out over 3,000 years what works, what doesn't. You got a lot of random samples that equal a very large study over time, right? You figure out what makes sense. And yeah, sure, we lost a few people, lost a few good folks along the way.
So the theory behind this is that we as people have different life forces or doshas, and that everything in the universe is connected. So an imbalance in one of these areas will affect the other. This is what you were getting at with your parents when they were giving you this advice. So the doshas, there's 3 of them. So it's the tridosha. So there's vata, which is air. And some modern authors say this, what they're trying to say is that's the nervous system. There's pitta, which is bile, or fire, which is, some people, again, if you're trying to make a corollary to modern medicine, you say those are enzymes. And then there's kapha, which is phlegm or earth and water. And some people say that's mucus. So then they're saying that that's how these are all related when you talk about the human body.
And again, 1,000 apologies for those pronunciations, which cannot possibly be even close to correct. Now, you're delivering all this as though it is fact, Asif, and I think you're playing the role of a guy who's being very open-minded. What does your Western medicine say about this concept of life forces?
Well, I think there's 2 things. There's the idea of, do these things make sense scientifically? That I'm not sure has been borne out. But another way to look at this is there evidence from scientific clinical trials or systematic reviews where you review all the literature about the effectiveness of Ayurvedic medicine if you're looking through the lens of modern medicine, right? As you said, there's thousands of years, so we're not commenting on that experience and the experience of, as you said, over 1 billion people who may practice this. What we're talking about is when you're looking at in the Western medicine kind of sphere, what we call allopathic medicine, what is out there. And so there's a couple things. There's a clinical trial that looked at Ayurvedic formulations of plant extracts and compared it with drugs used for osteoarthritis in the knee. And they found all of them provided reductions in pain improvement. So what does that mean? Does it mean that it works? Is there a placebo effect? Maybe there's a placebo effect with some of the actual medications, right? Who knows? So that's one. Again, there's not a lot of data out there. And the question is, why is there not a lot of data? Is it because people aren't interested in doing some of these studies? Perhaps, Western medicine is not interested in studying it. Mm-hmm. A very cynical person could say maybe some of the Ayurvedic practitioners don't want their treatments to be proven or disproven. right? Because if you disprove it, maybe people won't want to use it. But that's quite a
Well,
cynical
okay,
aspect.
dude, if you're going to go cynical, you could go cynical from the other side, which is you also don't want to prove that some of these exist. Otherwise, you'll stop spending money on drugs that make pharma money and start rubbing, turmeric on our rashes. And then what will happen to pharma? Poor pharma.
Or the opposite, in that the drug companies may want to prove this because then they can market it as a drug and make millions of dollars, right? They change the chemical compound turmeric slightly. So that's a good point, Ali. We probably should do more of these studies so we know.
No, I thought what you just proved was we should not do any of these studies so that pharma does not change the compound. Anyway, everybody benefits from the status quo. That's what I'm going to say. It's great what's happening right now. Let's not change the thing.
I'll give you another example, rheumatoid arthritis, which Ali and I know people who have this rheumatoid arthritis.
Oh, yeah.
They did a pilot study, small number of people, 43 people in 2011, where they tested methotrexate, which people who know that, it's a chemotherapy type drug, pretty powerful drug, against an Ayurvedic treatment, and they found they were similarly effective. Another study looked at 89 men and women, looking at Ayurvedic herbs for people with type 2 diabetes. So there was a bit less conclusive, but they did say that more studies need to be done because there may be some potentially promising results. And then there are a few small studies looking at Ayurvedic preparations in ulcerative colitis, which we talked about on a previous podcast, being an inflammatory bowel disease. And they were small studies, a handful of people. So there is some evidence that it may work. Is it as robust as what Ali is saying in Western medicine and pharmaceuticals? No, there's not. And so, again, you can decide between Ali and I's argument whether there should be or should not be more research done on this. But I think it should probably be studies, just like the studies on Chinese medicine, just like the studies on acupuncture, just to see what may be useful and what might not be.
Okay, but we started talking about this because we're talking about actual dangers associated with Ayurveda. And I know over the years, some of those dangers probably have to do with some sort of unethical producers of Ayurvedic products. This is not that, right? What are we talking about here?
So yeah, it's a bit complicated because I said I was going to get back to this. Most of these remedies are plant-based, but there's a practice where you can add metals or minerals or even gems to these herbal preparations. And that's called Rasa Shastra. That's this practice of adding minerals to herbal medicine. The problem is some of these minerals that are added are dangerous, toxic, what we call heavy metals, lead, mercury, and arsenic. That's the problem. And so this is a practice that's done where these are added. So a 2015 study looked at Ayurvedic preparations, and so that 40% had blood levels of lead and elevated blood levels of mercury in terms of people who use these preparations. And there's been various case reports of increases in the blood levels of people who use these Ayurvedic medicine of lead and mercury. And another study that was done in India in 2022 looked at over-the-counter Ayurvedic preparations, and they found that they had high levels of zinc, mercury, arsenic, and lead that exceeded the WHO limits for these various minerals and heavy metals. So it's definitely concerning. And the reason why I'm bringing this up is because there was a case recently, just a few weeks ago, that in British Columbia, where a Ayurvedic preparation that was kind of not approved by Health Canada was being used, and someone was found to have lead toxicity. We don't know a lot of details about this patient, but they went to the store, which I can tell you because it was published in the CBC. It's called All-in-One Wholesale Cash and Carry on 85th Avenue in Surrey, BC. Again, this is what's in the CBC article. I'm just telling you, you may want to avoid this place. That's up to you. So they looked at some of the products that were seized there, and they found elevated levels of mercury and lead and arsenic. So pretty concerning. Now, it's important that there are Ayurvedic health products that are approved by Health Canada. So it's important to search for these on that agency's database, and then you can find ones. And they should have an 8-digit identification number, and then you can know that that's helpful. But I did want to mention to you a couple of cases that have been published in the literature that kind of give an example of some of these things. And they're both Canadian cases. So the first one is a 39-year-old woman who came into the hospital. Again, these are both published in the Canadian Medical Association Journal. I'll link to these articles. So it was a 39-year-old woman came to the hospital with abdominal pain, constipation, nausea, and vomiting. And when they did blood work, she had a low blood count. So she had what's called anemia. Okay, so lots of different causes for anemia. So they started looking to see what the causes were, and then they couldn't find the cause. So they had her come back a couple of weeks. She was still really tired, short of breath. And then finally it kind of came out. They said, oh, she's taking some Ayurvedic medicines to treat infertility. And she would take maybe up to a dozen pills a day. And then they did her blood lead level. And her lead level was 55, and normal is less than 2.
Oh,
so
boy.
A super high level of lead. And so she had to undergo what's called chelation therapy. Chelation therapy removes toxic metals from the body, and she had to do that 3 times a day. And then she eventually recovered. And then when they went and they examined her pills, they found, these did have high lead levels. And
any action taken against the manufacturer of the pills, or that's not part of this article? That's more this family will.
Yeah, so there was the inquiry done from Public Health Ontario, Ontario, and Toronto Public Health and Health Canada, and they did a joint investigation. They confirmed this practitioner was non-compliant with some of the regulations. There's an act called the Natural Health Products Regulation. They were not in compliance with that, so they had to seize hundreds of pills, I think, from this person. And so
I bet it was thousands. She's taken. She herself has taken 12 a day, I think you said, right? So
right, and so then they had to contact 200 customers from this clinic, and then they found more pills that also had high levels again of arsenic, mercury, and lead. So again, when it comes to lead toxicity, most of the symptoms would be abdominal pain, fatigue, headaches, mood changes, the low blood counts. But what we see sometimes is what's called a neuropathy. So you get what's called a motor neuropathy. So you commonly see patients with a wrist drop, like they can't elevate their wrist. I'm showing Ali my wrist kind of just flailing around here on the camera here. And so it can be dangerous. And we know that lead exposure, if kids get it when they're young, can lead to intellectual development. That's why lead was removed from paints in Canada years ago, many, many years ago, only more recently removed in the States. So in the US, they actually test for lead toxicity in kids who are from lower socioeconomic status, because if they eat peeling paint and they live in a really old building somewhere, then they could get lead toxicity. But speaking of kids, I want to tell you about the second case, Ali. So this case was published, again, in Canadian Medical Association Journal, and published by researchers at the Hospital for Sick Children in Toronto, which is where I worked. So I did not publish this case, but it was 20-month-old twin girls who had weakness, decreased appetite, and a rash, and red and painful hands. And their hands and feet looked pink. And I sent this picture to Ali from the article. Ali, you can see this picture. They definitely look pink, right? Not red, they look pink.
Yeah, it's like even more than pink. It's like a crazy color that shouldn't be on the skin. I don't know my color wheel properly enough, but it's like a purple meets pink type of, it's pretty intense.
Yeah.
Fuchsia?
Yeah.
It's a fuchsia?
Yeah. So we call this a dusky pink discoloration. We'll get into what causes that. So the astute doctors who saw them said that this could be mercury poisoning. And so they asked the family, could they have gone into any mercury? They said, well, there's a teething powder that we're using once or twice a week over the last 4 months. And the blood mercury levels in the girls were 176 and 209. Normal is less than 18. So they also have to have a different kind of chelation.
And it was this teething powder. So even just twice a week using it.
It was tested.
They might have underestimated.
So what happens is there's different forms of mercury, but a type of inorganic mercury is called calomel, which is called sweet mercury. I don't know if it tastes sweet. I'm not going to try it to find out. This was used very commonly to treat things like yellow fever, typhus, even syphilis. And even though there was toxicity noted as early as the 1940s.
Okay, so it's not a good mercury. It's not, you said inorganic, but I don't know, you called it sweet mercury. The branding suggests that.
I don't know why it's called this, but these teething powders have continued to be used in the Indian subcontinent, so much so that it's called pink disease, because we know that it causes this. So what it causes is this acrodynia, which is this pink discoloration, swelling, and even you can get like numbness and abnormal sensation, and your skin can kind of come off in your hands and feet. And of course, you can get a neuropathy as well. It can also affect your nerves. It can cause emotional lability and memory problems, insomnia. And even though these products are banned in North America that contain calomel, this sweet mercury, the inorganic mercury, still used a lot in Southeast Asia. And the family clearly had bought it when they were in India and then they brought it back. Anyway, so this is, again, like, I just want to highlight this because it's been in the news recently. I will tell you one last story about this type of poisoning. And so I saw a patient once when I was doing adult neurology who had both lead and mercury toxicity at the same time. Now, I don't know if you can guess why someone would be handling both of these substances in their garage. They were doing some experiments in their garage. Do you know what they were trying to do, Ali?
They were eating the paint on the wall of the garage and drinking that sweet, sweet mercury after work. No?
So this person was very into alchemy. Again, alchemy doesn't work because you can't combine substances. So he was trying to combine two elements to create another element, which we know that's not the way elements work. Do you know what element he was trying to create?
No, dude. Was he making meth in the garage?
Not even. He was trying to create gold by combining lead and mercury.
Oh, okay.
But we know that that's not the way it works. So anyway, I ended up getting toxicity of both of those heavy metals in the end. So again, just want to call people's attention to these kind of toxicities. Again, rare. And like I said, there are actual Health Canada approved Ayurvedic medicines, which you can look up. Again, they'll have a serial number on them. So then you'll know that these have been tested and do not have the potential of containing these heavy metals. So that's our episode for today. Let us know what you guys thought. Very curious you guys watched Deli Boys. Let us know what you guys thought about this. And Ayurvedic medicine, again, it probably is worthwhile at some point doing more topics like this. So again, we talked.
Yeah, maybe having a guest in who's well-versed in Ayurveda. It's a very in-depth topic, and I don't even know if we can say we scratched the surface and we focused on one thing here. But that'd be
for sure. And things like Chinese medicine, acupuncture, again, these are all worth talking about because, again, it's not like there's no scientific evidence. There is some, and so it's probably worth talking about some of these. So let us know what you guys think. drvcomedian@gmail.com, Dr. V Comedian on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. We are everywhere, and Blue Sky as well. And reach out to us. And Ali, what do you got going on in April?
April, what do I got going on? I'm in this writing room for a few weeks, the one that you said we can't mention, although we've said too much already. And then I'll be around, There's a variety of comedy shows I'm doing in Canada, particularly around Toronto, because the comedy room will keep me a little bit close to home. But that information is on my website, standupali.com. And then I'll be doing some traveling in May and June. I'll be going to Fredericton and I'll be going to St. John, both New Brunswick.
Oh, great. Yes.
Yeah. Asif and my parents met. Yeah.
I wasn't born there, but my sister was, and Ali was born there. Yeah, exactly. Great. Hometown. But before you go, remember that although I'm a doctor, I'm not your doctor. Medical issues we talk about are for your interest and information only, and they're not medical advice. Please consult your medical professionals for actual medical advice. Thanks for listening.
See ya.